Hey, good evening. I apologize for the delay. It took a little bit longer to download the file from the previous meeting, so it took a little bit more for that, so I do apologize for the delay. Starting the meeting. Mr. Stern, I will turn it over to you.
Yes, will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move on to roll call. Continue.
Mr. David Bradley,
I'm here.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Here.
Mr. Larry Stern.
I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, good evening again. The first policy we have for review is the homeless policy. We do have this up. We are audited every year regarding our homeless process and also our Title I program as well. Excuse me, homeless is every 2 years in business speak. So this is a revised policy that was required. You can see again that the okay. Are you able to see that?
No, it must have launched in a different window, Mr. Cleaver.
Okay.
Do you have it? You might have it in the lower portion of this document. I see it's a rather large document.
Let me. Sorry about that. I do apologize. Yes, there we go.
It was a rather. I know this was a rather lengthy policy. As
Yeah.
I was reading through.
Okay. All right, so we can see that. We're able to see that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you can see the changes that are made or recommended to be changed in this policy. Again, they are actually going to be auditing us this year. Our homeless program, we currently do have 2 students who fall under this policy right now. Unfortunately, they were displaced by recent fire. And to give you a little background on homeless, even before getting into this policy, when we have students who are considered homeless, we work with them to make sure that they are still meeting their academic requirements and that they're able to get here. A lot of times, if there's a situation where a student is claimed homeless because of maybe lead in the bib house or radon readings or a fire, sometimes they're at the mercy of their insurance company who is searching for a apartment for them. For example, to maybe live in temporarily until their house is, mitigated or, different things are plans are developed. So that apartment may end up being in a school district. So if that is the case, we work with that family and the current school district that they are in to make sure that that student is still able to attend the school district. So if the apartment, for example, is in Palmerton School District, temporarily, we will work with them to get transportation. There's federal and state funds available to assist with that, to get them to our buildings. Here, Mr. George is great with working with us to meet the needs of those students. So that is just some of the requirements when it comes to working with students when they are claimed homeless. So as we scroll through, you can see a lot of the changes are, verbiage changes for, related to parents, the students as well. Child and youth is another change that you can see. Children and youth, excuse me. So when it comes to transportation as well with homeless, we can end up having students go as far as, say, for example, Scranton School District. Because they may have a relative that lives there and they can temporarily live with them. So we will work with Scranton School District regarding transportation to help get that student to and from Clayton as well. So there is sometimes where there's a large distance required for travel, and but we do make sure that we meet the needs of those students in the event that they are deemed homeless based upon this criteria. The new guidelines are really in the best interest of the students, and it helps and guarantees that students have those rights to stay within the current district when they are deemed homeless. So you can see there's responsibilities for enrollment, assignments. If there's a dispute, there's actually a dispute resolution for this, and there's requirements with there. How educational records are shared. Of course, there's laws with FERPA that have to be published as well. And there is a criteria. And you can see here it talks about different programs too. So there is Title I services and funds that we could use for this. We also get funds for English language learners, which is a possibility for some of those funds to be used with homeless, and within our special ed funds as well. So they do try to assist, because they do know that there's definitely an additional cost when we're transporting these individuals that are being homeless. But the state and federal government does offer some funding to help offset that. And you can see the transportation guidelines that are there as well. And also the training. The training is posted there. We work very heavily with our guidance counselors, are very involved with this, as are social workers. So they go through training when it comes to talking about homeless as well. So that's just giving you a little bit of a background with this policy. And again, this is part of the mandated for when it comes to working with homeless students and how when they are deemed homeless. Any questions regarding homeless or this policy?
I'd have
Here,
one.
Cleaver,
Go ahead.
I just want to clarify. So you're saying this policy is making these changes to comply with the laws that we need to abide by, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yep, these are recommended changes. They will send out updates. We are getting audited, like I say, so this is, they'll come through to look at policies as they've been reviewed, are the mandates changed, and they may look at this policy when we get audited and make recommendations for additional changes too, as part of their review process.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question, I guess, Mr. Cleaver. Say that Scranton example. The student lived in Scranton, just as an out of the blue example, something happened that they were displaced and they ended up living in our district. Now it's our responsibility, if they so choose not to attend our district, to transport them back to their home district in Scranton. Is that correct?
If they are a homeless student who is moving here from Scranton, so if they're being homeless from Scranton,
Yes.
yes, we would work with Scranton. You can see with the transportation to try and develop some type of method to help get that student back to Scranton School District.
So it's really where the student wants to go then, or where the family. Yeah. Do they want to transfer into ours, or as a temporary location if it's temporary, or if they want to stay in their home school, then we work with the home school between us and them to make out an amicable arrangement to get that child where they feel most comfortable in the learning environment.
Yes, that is correct. And there is times too where there is a situation where the student may want to, specifically in Scranton, since we're talking about, go back to Scranton School District, but for whatever reason, the transportation, and they're here for a little bit, and they're finding out that, okay, maybe the house is a total loss, or maybe it's going to take 3 to 6 months of, the house being rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, in many cases, when it's that long of an extended period of time, they will then attend the district they're currently in. And a lot of times it ends up, if there's relatives, they will move with the relatives. So a lot of times that relative may have another child in that school too, and then it just, it works out that, okay, maybe it's in the best interest of the student to now attend the home.
Okay, thank you. I mean, from what I can see here, this just does the best it can to make sure that the home district, the sending district, the resident district, everybody's doing the best they can to make sure the child gets the proper education.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes, Larry, this is all about the students and helping them out. So I got to ask the question, did Larry or Rita write any of this green areas, or if not, who did?
No, that was developed by myself, Mr. Tack, our home liaison, and also working together with our state reviewer for homeless.
Excellent. Who was our state reviewer for the homeless?
I want to say its last name is Zimmerman, but I know Mr. Tack is on this. So, Mr. Tack, is it Zimmerman? Am I correct?
It's Mr. Jeff Zimmerman.
And what department and agency does he work for?
He's for the homeless and foster care. He's with Region 7 up in the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area.
Of the Department of Education, or just a specific government agency for
For it's federal and state, Mr. Bradley, federal and state.
So what's the name of his organization? Can you forward me his contact information, please?
Yes.
Okay. Why was that not provided to the board prior to the adoption of this policy and the writing of this policy by our team, since we have a policy committee? Why was the policy committee not at all involved in the writing of this policy, since it is their obligated duty to write policy?
Mr. Bradley, I don't interpret the laws. I don't write the policies. I don't write the laws. These people are well educated in how the district needs to support the children in this particular environment. And that's why we have them to do that process. They like the policy.
Yeah, but Larry, when you abdicate
No,
your
don't
lawful
block-
authority,
don't-
Are there any
Don't
questions
fight me,
regarding
Mr.
Mr. Bradley?
I'm having a conversation. I'm making a statement.
No, I'm not having a conversation.
I'm making a conversation.
I asked it. I'm
I'm
not answering you again. So
You don't have to.
talk
I'm going to make
the
my
law.
statement. When you abdicate your lawful and responsible authority of a school director to not only write, hire administration to enforce, and then adjudicate these laws that you're writing, these local laws at the local level, you cause the problems that have occurred within this district, sir. When you abdicate that authority and say that you can't and don't, you neglect your duty as a school director to do exactly that. That's what your oath was for. Why you misunderstand that? I don't know. Probably why you get so explosive when I bring it up every time, and why your buddy Mr. Cleaver tries to silence the logic and reason that you realize that is supposed to be how it works,
Is there
sir.
any, that is your opinion, thank you.
It's not only my opinion.
Any
That's the
other
court's opinion. That's the court's
questions?
opinion. That's the state's opinion.
I
That's
have
the
no
Pittsburgh
other
Department.
question, and just, Mr. Bradley, just as a point of something, you know there's only 3 attendees at this meeting, so your audience is very small. Can we just move on to the next one?
No, ma'am. We have a responsibility.
questions?
Sorry. She answered.
next
I'm asking. Wait, Mr.
policy
Cleaver, do
for
not
review.
silence me. Okay, my turn. Rita, I don't care if
You
there's one
always
person
have
in the
a turn.
meeting. There's one person in the meeting, Rita.
Mr.
And
Bradley,
if it's your husband, is the other one? I don't care. I care that the
Mr.
people are
Bradley,
served by. Wait a
do
second.
you
I
have
care.
any comments?
I
on-
do
Oh,
because this
Okay, well
policy
then,
is.
before we move on, please
You don't-
take
you don't-
questions for your comments, or we're gonna
No,
move
I
on,
get to
and
decide.
you're not going to
No.
have an opportunity to speak because you're continuing to berate and do your spiel here. Do you have questions or comments regarding the policy?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
But first, I'm going to answer Rita because
Well,
it's my
no.
duty.
No, I don't need an answer. I need
Bradley,
you to talk
again,
policy.
any
Mr.
so-
Cleaver, could you please mute him and let him
Yes.
berate me at the end of the meeting?
No, you
Policy,
do not have the right to
policy
mute me.
manual,
No.
There is the food service, code.
Hold on, you do not have the right to mute me, and I'm still having a conversation about the homeless policy. Back up.
This is a
What is wrong with you people?
policy,
What is wrong with you people?
this policy, you'll see, the only change that we have is the part on the bad day. This is something that was brought with auditing purposes that is required. There's also an attachment as well. So this talks about bad debt and how the district makes the effort to recover it. And then at the end of the year, what is not recovered. But regarding this, the current debt that we have for unpaid food balances is $13,587. Out of that $13,587, some of them have not currently moved to free and reduced lunch, so that automatically eliminates them from having to make any additional payments. So you can see here, these are the layers that we go through when we try to collect the debt service from the students when they have a fund or a balance that needs to be recovered at the end of the year. So this is the policy. This is something that Mr. Barrett reviewed, looked at, and also our auditors as well, to have something in place as part of your policy. And this is where this additional verbiage comes from. Any questions on the food service policy?
I mean, in short, Mr. Cleaver, this is really the accounting to cover the bad debt for non-collectible lunches, breakfasts, or whatever it would be.
Yep, that is correct.
And how the state likes it to be accounted for.
Yep, and then the auditors too will review this to see and make sure that we're following this when it comes to marking that, how that is placed on the balance sheet.
I mean, I do appreciate how this policy is worded, as for how a student is handled, that it's really not the student's issue. I appreciate it's good, it goes to the parents and the guardians of that particular student to try to help the student by coercing them into the free or reduced lunch program. And I do appreciate that the student's not confronted and the ability for the student to still get lunch is still available. I understand that. So those are the key points that I think this covers. And like you say, the only addendums to the current policy is how at the end of the year, the accounting takes care of the uncollectible debt, should we say.
Yes. Mr. Robert?
One more time, I got to ask Larry and Rita if they applied any of their government authority towards the writing of this policy. It was not presented to me to be able to add, except for in this policy committee meeting. So I want to know if they made any of these green corrections, or did they abdicate that full authority to the administration or to some other third party?
This has been reviewed by the administration, presented to the board at the same time. They are saying everything at the same time you are, Mr. Brown.
That's a shame, because we're supposed to be writing this policy. It's our responsibility. We definitely would like your input. We'd like the input of the parents, the input of the students prior to writing a policy. And one of the things that I know that some of the parents gave to me was that some of the students in the past, let's not cast aspersions on anyone, but were refused meals because they had a high balance on their account. Larry's saying that never happens. Does that happen?
I did not say that does not never
Okay,
happen.
so if it
The
does
policy
happen,
right now, it does not state that would happen.
There is no students being denied meals, and there is laws, and there is no shaming laws as well.
correct, and I would agree with that. So then the next question is, how is this policy ensuring that accountability is held to the entire school district, so that we all understand and know that all of our employees recognize and know the policy, and then will adhere to those policies. And in the event that they do not, for whatever reason, we have a procedure for which a parent or a student can make a perceived complaint, written complaint, have it reviewed by this board, or first of all, reviewed by the superintendent is the proper procedure. If it's not mitigated at that level, it can be escalated to the board, and then the board can adjudicate the policy to ensure that it's being complied with so that the students are protected. That is missing from this policy, and I'm wondering why all of our policies tend to miss those pieces to this puzzle, because we have many written complaints. We have many people making statements. They might not be accurate, they might not be justified, but that should be reviewed, first of all, by our administration, and then secondly, by this board in the event that it is not satisfied. So how come that is missing from this policy? And since the board is failing to write the policy, I think that it is specifically left out of this policy by the administration who wrote this policy, because it's not in there. And if they're the only ones that did it, this is the first we're seeing it, we know that the board didn't leave it out on purpose. I think we should correct it before we move forward with the reading of this policy. Rita, what do you think?
I think we should move on, because all you're looking for is something to pick at and deride someone for. I think we should move on.
And Larry, what do you think? Should the policy have accountability standards?
I don't think so, because the accountability standards covered by what you said from the complaint process actually covers everything within our district if somebody wants to write a formal complaint. So
Yeah, but we don't have the
mentioned in
adjudication policy.
And then the other thing that I would just like to mention, you mentioned about people stating non-factual information. I believe that is very prevalent in our society.
Non-factual. The way
Especially in our meetings that we have with you, sir, there's a lot of non-factual information that is broadcasted as truths, which are not. Thank you very much. That's my comment.
And the best way to understand that, Larry, is that you then adjudicate through due process. The way that America works is you have the due process.
I'm not talking about the adjudication of this policy.
I'm talking about the adjudication of facts.
My statement was more.
The other.
Hold on, Mr. Cleaver. We're having a conversation. It's a policy committee meeting.
To move on.
No, I want to find out wait. I want to find out about this formal complaint that Larry suggested. If there's a formal complaint process, Larry, where is it written in our policy?
We have additional policy.
Under what policy number is a formal written complaint, Larry?
Mr. Bradley, stop, don't be excited.
Are there any questions on?
I still have a question. Larry, where's the formal written complaint policy?
Up for second reading.
Larry, what policy number is it?
The formal complaint policy.
Where is it?
You should know where it is.
Where is it?
I don't know the number.
Yeah, find it. It's not. It was removed from our agenda, and we need to put it back in. That's my point.
I cannot understand a thing anyone is saying. Mr. Cleaver, are we on policy 146.1 trauma-informed approach, second reading, and wondering if anyone has any questions or comments?
That is correct, Ms. Spinelli.
Thank you.
That section of it.
I have no comments on the policies up for second reading. Thank you.
Nor do I. I looked at them before. I looked at them again. I have no questions or comments.
And there are no questions from the public anymore from the board members.
I still think that this board is abdicating the authority to write these policies. There's no accountability for the staff in these policies. And Larry, under formal written complaint, you only have a Title I complaint still. You have a policy 906 that you're trying to use as your formal written complaint, yet we have people making these complaints. And as a board, they never get properly reviewed for due process, so we can ensure that factual information is being presented to the public and reviewed by this board, and then take action so that we don't have the problems where students aren't protected and the community is financially troubled, transportation-wise, bullying, harassment, hazing, other issues. When are we going to apply those? Hold on, Ms. Spinelli, you're interrupting me. I want to know when Larry's going to start applying the formal written complaint process to people that made one.
Mr. Bradley, can you let Ms. Spinelli?
Yeah, after I was done, I want to hear my answer. I want to know how Larry's going to... Don't silence me. You're just talking over me. I want to hear it from Larry, Mr. Cleaver. Mr. Cleaver, I'm trying to hear from Larry. I said the formal written complaint process is 906. How come it's not being applied or used by this board? It's
Mr. Bradley, that is your opinion.
It's not my opinion. It's the fact that we have not had a single due process hearing of any of these formal written complaints.
The only reason you want a formal hearing is so you can air everyone's dirty laundry, and that's not what a school district is about. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Stern and Mr. Cleaver.
That's not right. That's not right. You got to have, wait a second, you're still got all the other policy things. You are just not even being close to being respectful to the public.